just like all species evolve and change over time, eventually all species go extinct. We're going to focus in on what are called mass extinction events. So all species do quit existing. Sometimes they evolve into a completely different species. Sometimes they fail to adapt to a changing environment or can't compete against another species and they end up dying out. But when we're talking about mass extinctions, we're talking about something different. These are events where a large percentage of species go extinct in a relatively short time period. Now, relatively short, I put in the relatively because it might take hundreds of thousands of years. So the rate of extinctions varies over time. And it can go up, and the rate of the number of species existing can go up and it can go down. Mass extinctions are the most extreme events. So here is the Sepkoski curve. It's one way to look at biodiversity. This looks at the number of families. So you may recall when we organize living things, we've got the species level, above that's genus, way up at the top are kingdom. Family is one of the ones in the middle. And so when we look at the history of life on Earth, specifically looking at the fossil record, up to around 600 million years ago, we have very limited number of fossils. So we don't have good data for that time period. But when we get to a time period called the Cambrian, we can see that the number of families, the biodiversity starts to go up right through here. And it goes up and up and up, and then there's a sudden decline. And then it goes up, a little bit of a dip, and then, oh, there's another decline. And then up, 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 big decline. Up, 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 decline. Up, 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 up. Okay, so you get the picture. Biodiversity has increased over millions of years. So as we move forward, we actually end up with more biodiversity than we've had in the past. Scientists generally agree that there have been at least 5 of these mass extinction events. These show up in the fossil record where species that used to be pretty common quit showing up. And we're limited to how far back we can go in time because fossilization is really a rare event. Fossils get buried, and the longer they stay buried, the more likely they are to be destroyed in some way. And we really depend on new geological events to find a lot of these. The formation of canyons, the plate tectonics that lift mountain ranges. So it can be tricky to figure out what these are, but we are confident there are at least these 5 events. So we're going to start with the earliest one, the end Ordovician. This happened between 450 to 440 million years ago. We can't be more precise about the date than that. So sometime during this time period, 70% of all species on the planet went extinct. It doesn't look like 70% on that previous graph because that was families. So if you think of your extended family where you might go extinct, the family might still exist. So the previous graph was looking at whole families going extinct. The end Ordovician happened about the same time there was a significant increase in volcano activity and corresponding relatively sudden global warming. Don't like the sound of that last one, do you? Do you? The next one was the late Devonian event, 375 to 360 million years ago. Again, at least 75% of all species. This particular one happened in a series of extinction pulses. We have no idea what caused this one. Something happened, but we don't know what. Then there was the Great Dying that ended the Permian. The Permian was it was before the dinosaurs, but it was when massive amphibians and reptiles dominated the planet, or at least the land. At the end of the Permian, around 252 million years ago, the Great Dying happened. 90 to 95% of all species went extinct, especially the oceans. The oceans were just decimated. Again, we don't know what caused this. Then we have the Triassic, the first period when we start thinking about dinosaurs. And at the end of this period, 201.3 million years ago, notice we can be a little more precise about our dates the closer we get to modern times. And again, more than 70, maybe as much as 75% of all species went extinct. This really set things up to allow the dinosaurs to evolve, to grow to those massive sizes during the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. Again, we don't know what caused this extinction event. So then we move on to the dinosaurs. Yes, these are all dinosaurs. The guy up at the top, this is really cool. This is a relatively new study that has found evidence that suggests what color this little raptor was. So yes, this is a raptor. This is a small raptor, so it was even smaller than Velociraptor, but it was still in that same group. Yeah, it was covered with feathers. And we're pretty confident that this was pretty close to what colors looked like here. The bottom image is a bunch of different raptors of different sizes. Number 2 there, that's Velociraptor. Little bit smaller than what they said in Jurassic Park. Not quite as scary. Also, seriously feathered. Heck, there's even some evidence that T-Rex had a few feathers on it. Okay. So the end of the Cretaceous period, the end of the dinosaurs, happened at 66 million years ago. Well, I say the end of the dinosaurs, but some of them survived. And we know them today as birds. The previous picture should have given you a clue about that one. So the end Cretaceous one, 75% of all species went extinct. This one, we know the cause of. It was caused by an asteroid impact. If you look at this white line here in the rock face, that is the material that was released when the asteroid hit near the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. You can find this white line all around the world. It contains elevated levels of iridium and minerals that have been obviously made by the impact, made by extreme sudden force. So we know what wiped out the big dinosaurs. It was an asteroid impact. So when we look back at the big five, one of them, volcano activity, global warming, unknown, 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 asteroid impact. Okay. Now, is that it? Well, no, definitely not. The Great Dying, the one that wiped out up to 95% of all species, may have been two separate events that were relatively close together in time, geologically speaking. Because it happened so long ago, it can be hard for us to determine if that was one event or two. And of course, anything before around 541 million years ago, not a clue. We just don't have enough fossils. And then there's the sixth mass extinction, also known as the Holocene extinction or the Anthropocene extinction. Anthro refers to us, people. Anthropocene is the current time period where humans are having a significant impact on basically everything on the planet. During the last 120 years, extinctions have been occurring at over 1,000 times the speed that they had been occurring before 1900. Cause? Guys, it's us. The human population has gotten huge. We are over-consuming our natural resources, destroying wilderness, and climate change. The image on the right, the largest section here at the top, this is the mass of livestock, mostly cows and pigs. 60% of the mass of all mammals on Earth is livestock. An additional 36% is humans. Wild mammals only make up about 4% of the mass of mammals on the planet. This is all of the elephants, all of the chimpanzees, all of the mice, all of the whales. 4%. Now, after a mass extinction event, there is usually a rebound, an explosion of new diversity, new species never before seen. Life evolves fast to take advantage of resource availability. The end Permian extinction event allowed for the diversification of dinosaurs. The end Cretaceous event, when the dinosaurs were wiped out, the big dinosaurs were wiped out, allowed for the diversification of mammals. So even when 90 to 95% of all life on the planet is wiped out, life comes back. Life finds a way. Now, there's an interesting new concept that's been going around the past couple of decades called de-extinction. I'm calling it reversing extinction. Same thing. Now, reversing extinction, sorry, we're not bringing back the dinosaurs. As far as we can tell, DNA cannot survive that long. And since the dinosaurs went extinct 66 million years ago, yeah, there's just not any DNA left from that time period. We've tried, but we haven't been able to get any of it. The oldest DNA we've managed to recover is just over 1 million years old. And that's from mammoth teeth. The mammoths were buried in the Siberian permafrost. Permafrost is ground that is permanently frozen. Okay, so we're not bringing back the dinosaur. Maybe we can bring back more recently extinct species. There's a big push to bring back the mammoths. That's not having much success yet. But there is a species called the Pyrenean ibex. This is a goat-like animal that went extinct in early 2000. The last known individual died in early 2000. They took skin samples, preserved them, and then attempted to clone her. They implanted 54 embryos into species closely related to this ibex. One clone was born alive, and it died shortly after birth due to birth defects. Cloning is a challenging process. It's hard to do, and every species has its own unique quirks for the cloning process. So this isn't too surprising. And let's face it, this species of ibex went extinct because there was competition with domestic species. There was overgrazing of the land. There was introduction of non-native species for hunting purposes. There were probably diseases brought into the area on the livestock and the non-native species, and poaching. All of these contributed to the extinction. Extinction is very seldom one thing. It's usually a collection of things. And this kind of represents some of the problems with this idea of reversing extinction. If we've damaged the ecosystem, where are we going to put these animals? If we want to bring back dinosaurs, we have to make sure that they have the kinds of food that they would be able to eat. Speaking of which, when you lose a species, you also lose their microbiome, the unique collection of bacteria that live in their digestive tract. And for a lot of species, especially herbivores, those bacteria are critical for the ability to digest food and get nutrients from it. So that's a problem. Genetic diversity is lost. Genetic diversity within a species is very important for the future evolution of the species and its long-term survival. Low genetic diversity is associated with high extinction risk due to environmental changes and diseases. What about behaviors? Lots of animals have to learn their behaviors from their parents. Well, an animal goes extinct, we lose those behaviors. And of course, the cost. Whew, it's very expensive to do this. And why should we spend money bringing back mammoths when we aren't doing enough to save polar bears? Now, here I've been squashing this idea of reversing extinction, but we can potentially use cloning to save species that are not quite extinct. Meet the black-footed ferret. It's a native species, lived in the prairies across the North America. It was declared extinct in the wild in 1996. 18 individuals survived in captivity. So there was a lot of captive breeding. They've reintroduced these to the wild, and now the wild population is over 1,000 adults. This is great. It's a big improvement over 18. But we still have to manage them. We have to continue with captive breeding. We have to help them survive the kinds of problems that caused them to go extinct in the first place, including exposure to diseases like plague and canine distemper from free-running dogs. But we can also use cloning. And we can use cloning to bring back some genetic diversity. And so now I'd like to introduce you to Elizabeth Ann, the first ever clone of a U.S. endangered species, a little black-footed ferret born in December of last year. Hope for the future.